Greetings, it is I, your host, Cinema Kane, and I am back today to talk to you about another of my favorite childhood movies. Here lately, it seems like I'm on a kick where I've been reviewing movies from my childhood, but here we are again. Flight of the Navigator came out in 1986, and from the moment I saw it as a kid, I was hooked. And the reason I was hooked was because it combined my two favorite things. That Amblin style, it couldn't happen here, mixed with, a child going on an adventure element that, things like E.T. and the Goonies and Explorers, the Monster Squad, all those great 80s movies, Cloak and Dagger, all those great 80s movies where kids went on adventures. Flight of the Navigator had that in spades. But on top of that, it also had one of the coolest ship designs of the era, in my opinion. And that's part of why I love that movie to this day. It's actually a real shame to me that the original ship from that movie has been just basically modified to the point that it's barely recognizable anymore and put on top of a freaking drink stand at Disney World. It's just a shame because Flight of the Navigator means so much to so many people. And it's because it means so much to so many people that a documentary came out within the last couple of years that I'm going to actually do a review on after this, called Life After the Navigator. And it's a very touching and powerful documentary, but I'll get to that when I get to that. Right now we're talking about the 1986 film. The thing that really works for this, I've already explained about the whole Amblin vibe to it that Steven Spielberg was so good at creating, but it also was sort of the dying breath of that trend in the 80s, in that by the time Flight of the Navigator had come out, that trend had kind of started to wane a little bit, and people were not as interested in that style of movie anymore. At least it didn't seem like they were. As a result, Flight of the Navigator didn't do great at the box office, which is kind of a shame, because I would have loved to have seen what a sequel to that movie would have looked like in the 80s. But as it stands, it didn't do great. The, prospect of a remake of Flight of the Navigator has actually been on Disney's radar for a long time now, at least 10 years. But most recently, Bryce Dallas Howard, who has directed several episodes of The Mandalorian, and of course is famously an actress herself, and of course the daughter of Ron Howard, is supposedly attached to direct the remake of Flight of the Navigator. My biggest issue with a movie like Flight of the Navigator being remade, aside from the fact that there are already too many remakes in my opinion, which I think, many of us would probably agree with, is that Flight of the Navigator used early CGI in a few parts, and I mean sparingly, and they combine it with practical effects. To me, that's when CGI is best, is when you can combine practical effects with what you can do in the computer, because then everything doesn't feel as artificial, as cartoonish. And that's one of the big reasons Flight of the Navigator stands out to me, is because it took this great adventure story of this kid who, comes back to Earth, to his home all these years later, with no memory of where he had disappeared to for 8 years. But he did that, combining these practical effects and these digital effects to great storytelling potential. Of course, you've also got the great Paul Reubens, Pee-wee himself, voicing the ship. It's just a great movie overall. I love this movie, and I can't say enough good things about it. The lead actor, Joey Kramer, was so perfect and so great in this role, and it always kind of killed me as a kid why he never did more work. But that's why I'm going to be reviewing Life After the Navigator, because it's a story worth checking out for so many reasons. But right now, have you seen Flight of the Navigator? Comment below if it's one of your favorite movies from childhood. If you've never seen Flight of the Navigator, what are you waiting for? Go to Disney Plus right now and watch it. I'm your host, Cinema Kane. I hope you enjoyed this review of Flight of the Navigator from 1986. If you did, click that like icon. Subscribe. Share this on all your social media platforms. I'm trying to grow the channel to 100 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm already at 27. Help me grow it even more. And I'll see you next time at the video store.